104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. Broadcasting pure classic rock from the Just One More studio in beautiful Midtown Springfield. It's Ned Talk, your local live sports show.
Sports talk for imbeciles. I hate that show.
Now, here's Ned.
Play ball!
Yes, sir. Monday night, here we are again. Time to take a little break from the music and talk about sports. I'm Joe Westen, your host for the next hour, joined by our sports roustabout, Ned Reynolds. Ned, how are you doing on
Very,
this?
very good.
On
You
this
have
Monday?
remembered to do it exactly right. And
Yes.
Ned is personally doing great because you must understand now, I thrive in hot weather.
Yeah.
Triple digits coming up. Guys, that's for me.
You were telling me the other day you mow your lawn at the hottest part of the day.
I do, usually about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, keep in mind, it only takes about an hour to mow it, but still, it's a good challenge.
For those of you wondering, Ned Reynolds, not a wussy. Not at all.
No, it has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that at all. But I am a believer, and this is antiquated, I'm sure, but you need to sweat. It eliminates poisons from, I don't mean poisons in the...
Toxins.
Toxins is a better way of putting it. From your body, and allows your body to breathe anew, and the more you can perspire, the better.
And Ned believes in leaching, too, by the way. Also with us is Stormy Davis. Stormy, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a very good Monday.
Yeah, it is. And it's the week of Mitch Holtis coming
It
to
is.
town. He will
Cannot
be here
wait.
Friday night at the Riff. In case you don't know where the Riff's at, it's part of the Classic Rock Coffee Complex, which is at the corner of Sunset and Kansas Expressway. Still a few tickets left. We're not selling as many tickets this year because of the coronavirus, obviously, so we're doing some social distancing. You can buy those tickets online right now at 1047thecave.com. Ned, you've been through several of these. Tell people what they can expect.
Well, Mitch Holtis is the guest, of course, and he allows us being yours truly and Art Haynes, to interview him. We've known Mitch for a long, long time, worked with him for many, many years. He is one of a kind. He is truly a connoisseur of pro football in all aspects. He's, of course, especially knowledgeable about the Chiefs, as he should be. That's where his meal ticket is. But in terms of football in general, this guy is a consummate expert. Never at a loss for words. His repartee is excellent. I thought you brought it up pretty well the other day, Joe, when I made some comment about he's an easy interview. Easy. Hey, Mitch, how you doing? Well, you're good for the next half hour. After that.
Yep.
And he is. He's very glib. He loves to meet people. Let's see, this will be my fourth, I believe it is, my fourth interview with him. Well, is it 4 years or 3 years that he's been down here?
3, I think. Let's see,
This will be number 4.
Okay, this will be
number
number
4, yeah.
And each time, folks, I love this, each time at the end, when we're all milling around and so forth, he gathers a group from the audience. Now, whether or not he'll be able to do that this year, I don't know. But he gets a group of them, because everybody wants to meet him and shake hands with him, and he leads them in, touchdown, Kansas. It's funnier than heck. It really is.
I still like the impersonations. Those are fun. You and Art.
Well, I don't find them particularly humorous at all.
He's very entertaining, and if you're a Chiefs fan, it's a must-see because he'll get you really ready to go for football season. I know midsummer, and you're probably thinking, I'm not in football mood quite yet. Mitch puts you in football mood really quickly.
To that end, Joe, last year during the course, very early on, we were discussing the Chiefs roster, and this is the first, and I should have known this, but the first that I was familiar with Chris Jones, first time. And he said, you guys, you have not seen anybody play football until you see this guy. He's 6'7", number one, 6'7", well over 300 pounds, but his wingspan, and then Mitch exaggerated. Turned out he wasn't exaggerating.
No,
at
he
all.
wasn't.
Wingspan is huge. He said, this guy is a disruptive force. Okay, I just made that little note. Chris Jones. I've never heard of him, probably won't again. Well, the rest is history. You know what he's done and how disruptive he was in the Super Bowl. Well, that was all prefaced by Mitch at our little get-together. Yeah, it's really something to see, and it's a very nice evening.
Well, that makes a nice transition for us because that's the big news in Chiefs Kingdom right now is Chris Jones. What's the latest?
I know you're getting awfully choked up over this situation, but the fact is,
I am.
The Chiefs have been talking with him, and that in and of itself is positive. But what is negative is the fact that, let's see, what time is it? A little after 6 o'clock. It's 24. They have a little bit less than 48 hours to get something done. It has to be. I may have to be corrected on this, but I think it's 3 o'clock on the.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I know it's sometime in the afternoon, and I think it's 3. That they have to have a deal worked out. And if they don't, well, then the guy can play. But if he plays, it'll have to be as the franchise player. And as the franchise player, the guy's going to get $16,100,000. That's a great salary. It is also a big chunk out of Kansas City's budget, but I think they can handle that. But he being Jones, wants a long-term contract. He doesn't want to take a chance with free agency at the end of the year and see what happens then. After July 15th, if the Chiefs don't sign him, they can't talk to him. There can be no contract negotiations, period. It's against the rules of the NFL. So he has Kansas City in something of his hip pocket in that regards. But the Chiefs have him at a disadvantage too, because suppose he does play as a franchise player and he gets injured. Then what happens? That's why he wants that long-term contract, because your availability in the National Football League is not like it is in Major League Baseball or the NBA or anything like that. You're one solid hit away from being toast.
Yes.
Well, we talked about it last week that they signed Patrick Mahomes. It was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, everybody knew they were going to sign him, but the timing was surprising, and that maybe that would lead to them signing Chris Jones, and they've done some work in the past week.
Joe, in my opinion, it was done for 2 reasons. Number one, they wanted to get everything cleared up, and Mahomes, did he have to think about $503 million over 12 years? No, I don't think that.
Doubtful.
So they wanted it done and out of the way, but they also did it with Chris Jones in mind for two reasons. Number one, can we get him? Can we get him at a pretty good rate, a rate that we can afford with this massive hit on our budget? Or are we waiting now to give him a limited amount of time just to tell him that we're going to deal you, we're going to trade, which they can do only if he signs the tender. That's the agreement to be a franchise player. He hasn't signed that yet. So, again, we're running short on time here. I really, deep down, I think the Chiefs do come up with a deal for him. Whether or not he accepts it, I think they'll make a presentation to him. But the guy wants $21 million a year. $21 million a year for what? 4 or 5 years, somewhere around there, maybe even longer. Yeah. That's a big hit.
That's a ton of money. Let me ask you, what are the options that the Chiefs have? Where can they cut, and can they sign and trade, or are they looking for a trade? Just run down the options for us.
Well, Sammy Watkins would be one of them because he makes a heck of a lot of money. Now, he has had his contract restructured, but still, you have to pay the guy.
That's what I was going to ask you. He came to the team last year and said, let me restructure because I want to stay with the team. I love what we're doing. Is that a guy that you really want to get rid of?
No. From a philosophical standpoint, no.
No.
But keep in mind, this is a business. And you do have to operate it as a business. In terms of loyalty, it probably plays about a 10% factor in some of the situations. Look at Tom Brady. Couldn't come to a deal with him, and he's been with the Patriots all these years, all these wins. Now where is he? Tampa Bay. There can't be any loyalty and still maintain a fiscal responsibility. I think Watkins, depending on how the season goes, there may be others, especially on the line. Eric Fisher, I think, is probably expendable. He's a veteran on that line. Dr. Duvernay-Tardif, I think, is probably one who they would consider dealing with. These are all very wealthy individuals making big salaries, and you're going to have to make some adjustments in your entire payroll. Now, how does that affect the team? Well, optimistically, you can say, well, it's going to be all right. We can survive. Linemen are interchangeable. Oh, no, they're not.
No, they're not.
And you see that when there are key injuries involved with any team. We saw it with the Chiefs. They lost a couple of offensive linemen, not this past year, but 2 years ago. And, it affected them greatly because of just the timing element and their abilities. There is a major difference. Casual fan can't see it, but down there on the field, the coaches can and the players can. It's certainly a very dicey circumstance for any general manager, but especially for the Chiefs being world champions.
Do you see that there's a trade market, any possibility for trading Chris Jones?
There is, but he has to sign the tender.
Yep.
And he
says he's not going to do that.
He did that with D. Ford last year. He signed the tender, became a franchise player, and what was he? 2 days later, he was gone to the San Francisco 49ers. And the same with Ford. The big guy they got from the Seattle Seahawks, the big lineman.
We're all drawing a blank.
Here we go.
Dead air on radio.
Yeah. Anyway, he did the same thing.
Yeah,
with
that
Seattle.
guy.
Earl Thomas? Was it Earl Thomas?
No.
Thomas.
Big lineman that they got, University of Michigan kid. I've drawn a blank on his name. Anyway, beside the point. He did the same thing. He was signed the tender, and they traded him to the Chiefs for some, valuable property and some money. And the same thing can happen here with Chris Jones, although they would really have to look at what they would get. You have to get equal talent, number one, and you have to get something that's going to be monetarily understandable. As a free agent, suppose he does play and then declares himself as a free agent at the end of the year. Then declare himself, he will be a free agent.
Yes.
He's an unrestricted free agent. And he signs with, just to say, the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
What do the Chiefs get in compensation? Zero. Nothing at all. They would get no compensation. Now, back before the new contract was signed in 2014, they would have had some compensation in draft picks, but not now. You don't get anything at all. So Kansas City needs to weigh the circumstances here very carefully and understand what all the ramifications are. They want him. He needs to be still young. Heck, he's 26, 27 years old. And as big as he is, and as strong as he is, and as disruptive a force as he is.
Frank Clark.
Frank Clark. Thank you, Frank Clark.
Mike was calling on our hotline to tell us that Frank Clark is the name. Thank you, MTI.
What's his last
name?
Mike. The intern.
Just kidding, Mike. Just kidding. Thank you, man. Yeah, Frank Clark is who I was trying to think of. But the fact of the matter remains that you have to be very diligent with what you do in terms of signing a free agent or letting a guy become a free agent. It's a very complicated circumstance.
All right, Stormy, you're a general manager. I'm not supposed to say that, but
I
just said it again. You're a general manager. What do you do? Put on your general manager hat. You don't know all the money, but what do you do?
Right. Well, the one other thing that Ned referenced to but didn't bring up in some of these trades is the risk factor in what you get as far as the drafts go. I mean, you could get a number one pick in the draft, but if you get Vinny Testaverde instead of Tom Brady, it's going to be a little bit of a difference in how you come out of that. So there's a big risk factor in what they get with the non-tangible side, with the trades when it comes to the draft, of what picks they may or may not get, where they may move up the scale on that. And they factor that in a lot. And we were talking about Mitch Holthus, and I think it was 2 years ago, Mitch first started talking about on Andy Reid's walls in his office. He said it's like watching a mathematician or Einstein figure out some great theory, because he's got all this stuff written up, and you walk in there and you're just blown away. And you know that Big Red is in there going through all this stuff and weighing in that risk factor of what they may or may not get in the draft. And that's a big part of it that a lot of people kind of overlook when they're looking at, can they get for this guy? Can we trade for this dude? Can we get this person in here? Or can we fill this space on the line? I'm like, well, there's one more factor that's almost in every trade, and that's some kind of working within the draft and where they end up in that. So that's another one that I would look at big time for Kansas City. What would they get out of it in that aspect as well?
Well, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to open up the phone lines, 863-7104. That's the number to call. Got something you want to discuss with us? Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, baseball starting, all sorts of stuff going on in sports, and we'd love to hear from you. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
Ned is in the house.
Everyone can just calm down.
It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
Yep, Ned Talk. That means Ned Reynolds is here, Stormy Davis, and myself, Joe Westen, and we are sitting around shooting the breeze.
Is that what we were shooting?
Yeah, something like that. That's what I can say on the radio. We were shooting
that's right.
something.
I keep forgetting that part.
Yeah, so we're talking about sports, and we're just 10 days away from the delayed start of Major League Baseball. They're still having trouble with testing. They're still having players come through with coronavirus. I just saw Aroldis Chapman has it now.
Yeah, well,
How many more Yankees can get this?
He tested a couple of days ago. That's not new.
Yeah.
And tested positive. What you're not realizing, though, and they don't say this in the test, that these, many of them, not all, but many of them are asymptomatic.
Yeah.
And you carry that virus. That's part of a virus, not necessarily pandemic, but epidemic. Flu. The regular flu that anybody, so many people are asymptomatic. And that's how the disease necessarily is spread. Now, in the case of COVID-19, there is no vaccine, and that's the big factor involved. But there are some players who, many of them, have tested as asymptomatic carriers, and under the protocol, they do have to be quarantined. I would suspect. I don't know anything about Chapman, whether or not he showed any symptoms.
He is showing symptoms. They said mild symptoms at this point.
Probably then a cough and maybe a headache or something like that. There is one player, one Cardinal, who has opted out for the season, and I don't not understand this case. But Jordan Hicks is the reliever from Arkansas. He's a young kid. He's only, 22, 23-year-old. 2 years ago, he was throwing well over 100 miles an hour, 102, 103 miles an hour. Did last year put a strain on his arm and, in fact, did tear a tendon and did have Tommy John surgery. He is still recovering just a bit from that Tommy John surgery and probably would not be effective for some of the 60-game season. But he has opted out. There's a reason why he's opted out. He is a type 1 diabetic. So he has an underlying circumstance that makes him an at-risk player. And as an at-risk player, he can opt out for the season, get his full salary, and get his full service time as well. Do not decry that one little bit.
No,
I think
not
he's
at all.
very smart in doing it. It's only 60 games, and he should be able to spend that time recovering and working out the arm and so forth and so on. So that's a pretty wise decision. Incidentally, the Cardinals are apparently going to play one exhibition game. A lot of these teams, especially the Phillies and the Washington Nationals and the Yankees, have several exhibition games that they're playing. But the Cardinals and the Royals will have one, and it's against each other, and it will be a week from tomorrow afternoon. I'm sorry. Yeah, a week from tomorrow. Well, let me get my chronology straight. Wednesday,
It's Monday,
July
Dad. It's
22nd.
Monday.
Yeah, I was updating the calendar. It'll be Wednesday, July the 22nd, and at Busch Stadium, 3 o'clock. It's an exhibition game. Now, the Cardinals and Royals also play 6 regular season games, 3 in each stadium. So, indeed, we do have baseball coming, and I think it's probably going to be, at least I hope it is, getting underway, and hopefully there will be no repercussions.
I said last week we talked a little bit about, do you care? And I was kind of in the, I don't really care anymore about hockey or baseball or basketball really restarting. But I'm getting kind of excited. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch just everybody starting out equal and making the sprint to the finish line together. Be interesting to see that because teams that don't normally have a shot, everybody's got a shot going into this. 60 games. Just put together a good 60 games.
I am really interested to see how managers work their pitching staffs.
Yeah.
Because this is a 60-game season, not 162. And there won't have to be any of the rotation as such. You're going to throw your guys in there every 4 and 5 days.
Exactly. You know, this is about the time the trade deadline hits. It's a little after that, but that 60 games, like you think about Milwaukee a few years ago when they got CC Sabathia and they tossed him out there every 4th day, and he made a huge difference to Milwaukee. They can do that. Teams can do that if they've got a workhorse that they want to put out there every day. So it should be interesting to see how it all breaks down. Have you found out more about, are the teams going to stay in their own divisions or have they created new divisions because of the way things are?
No, they're staying in their leagues, National League team and American League team and so forth and so on. But no, in terms of their divisions, they will be relegated to regions of the country. There's an East, a West, and a Central, and that's how they'll play the games. Now, I must admit, I'm ignorant as to how they'll form the playoff teams as such. I imagine it's the same as it always has been, your champion plus one wild card. I would assume that's how they're going to do it.
I think they talked about an extra round this year, possibly an extra round. They scrubbed that. Okay,
yeah.
All right.
It's going to be the normal postseason play, which will take it into probably the latter part of October.
10 days out. What's your prediction? What do you think?
It's impossible to make one.
Oh, come on.
No, all right. I say that because it's so different in how teams are going to make their approach to the season. In the National League Central, I was, now keep in mind, being in Missouri and being associated with the Cardinals, you always want the Cardinals to win, but I'll tell you, the Cincinnati Reds have themselves a powerhouse. Now, do they have the pitching to carry through? Don't know. The Cardinals do have the pitching, but do they have the overall offensive attack? Same with the Chicago Cubs, Milwaukee Brewers. Probably the only team that really doesn't fit into the mix is Pittsburgh because they're still young, and that's who the Cardinals open the season with. Mm-hmm. Now, I say open the season. On July 24th is when you're opening the season on a Friday night in St. Louis. But it'll be the Pirates, and then they'll play their regular schedule on through, and then the American League, they'll have either 4 or 6. It depends on how the numbers break down between the rivals, the Minnesota Twins, Detroit Tigers, Kansas City Royals, White Sox, people like that. And it's going to be a good little challenge.
Stormy, your prediction?
My prediction is I'm going to bang a drum. I kind of do quite often on this. Is that I'm looking at the players who are opting out. I'm looking at the players who are staying in, and I want to see who's going to take advantage of this and step up and say, "This is my opportunity. This is my chance at making something. This is the chance at showing people that I'm the ball player I think I am, and have worked to being." And I want to see somebody come out of this as the hero of this short season that people will just talk about for years to come, and we might have more than one of them.
We talked about this last week, that taxi squad. I mean, if that was the squad for the Springfield Cardinals, you'd probably have a sellout every night there because there was some major talent there.
You'd have a championship team.
Oh, yeah.
That 20 players who are coming down here are all top-notch prospects. Now, why would that not be under normal circumstances? Why would that not be the championship team? Because many of them would be with the Memphis Redbirds. Mm-hmm. But the fact is they're all, or many of them, are down here in Springfield. I'm interested in seeing that big third baseman Walker, the number 1 draft choice from Georgia, high school player. He's 6'5", 220, can hit the ball out of sight. There is another one coming in, a pitcher shortstop from Texas, and Jose Oquendo is going to be down here to work with him. This is Nolan Gorman is going to be here, the Liberatore kid who they got from the Tampa Bay Rays, who is supposedly an outstanding left-hander who can really do some things. He'll be down here. This is the nucleus of a very good backup team to have. And there may be a time in the 60-game season in which these individuals are going to be called on. All remaining to be seen. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they expand the rosters in September. I'm not sure that rule still exists. But I wouldn't be surprised if Gorman and Liberatore are up there. I would be if some of the young kids are, but we'll see.
And it'll be interesting to see how the coaches decide to make changes between these taxi squads and the regular team throughout the season, because it'll be a little more condensed to where they can keep an eye on, one group of guys rather than having to look at 2 or 3, farm teams at a time and say, okay, we've got this guy here, and they suddenly spot somebody they might not have spotted before. So it'll be interesting to see how they change some of that out.
Any word? Is there any sort of trade deadline, or can trades be made?
Trades can be made now. They can be made now. After the season has begun, I'm sure they have a limit as to when any dealing, probably a week or 2 or 3, somewhere around there. But I know they can be concocted now. And so far, to my knowledge, nothing has happened.
Should be interesting. I can't wait.
It will be. This is going to be very, very much an entertaining from a fan standpoint, but very much a learning process for Major League Baseball, how you conduct yourself in a short season like this, and with players who are, according to the protocol, ill. Many of them are not physically ill, but they are positive.
Yes.
And allegedly can be contagious. So all of that is going to factor in, and how this affects sports in the future. After we have the vaccine, I hope we have one, after that and after some of the curative agents had been promoted upon the public, how everybody reacts to this and how the fans come back. There's really an interesting event that's coming up this Wednesday night. It's the NASCAR All-Star Race. And it's going to be held at the Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee. Normally it's in Charlotte, but they're putting it at Bristol for a key reason. And the key reason is NASCAR is allowing 20 to 30,000 fans in attendance. This is 20 to 30,000. Now you say, my God, the Bristol Motor Speedway? Folks, the Bristol Motor Speedway is probably the biggest of all the NASCAR arena. It's the one where they had the football game last year, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, whenever it was, Virginia Tech in Tennessee. 157,000, largest crowd in American history to see it. Now, a lot of them couldn't see the game. But the fact is that this particular Bristol Motor Speedway, which has already been used for one race this year, is huge. So you can have distancing and still have 30,000 people. I'm anxious to see how that works out.
We want to hear from you. Our number is 863-7104. Give us a call. If you got a question for Ned, we'd love to hear from you. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
Ned is in the house.
Technology, huh? 3 steps forward, 4 steps back.
It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
People ask me, why did I pick such sexy music for Ned Talk? And it's because Ned, dead sexy. Even I just now noticed you shaved. You dropped the Sean Connery.
Oh my goodness!
Here I go from a roustabout to being sexy. That'll be the day.
I known you for so long without the thing. It was weird with it. Now all of a sudden you come in without it, and I didn't notice.
I shaved it last Thursday, and it just it's too hot. Too hot for me. It got scratchy and itchy and all that sort of thing, so I said to heck with it.
And you actually made the trek at the Marshfield 4th of July parade.
Did 2.5 miles. It was fun. It was also quite warm. Not as warm as we're going to have later on this week.
And a little secret, Ned probably doesn't want me to tell people this. He locked himself out of his house. He lost his keys, but he found them.
It was found for me.
And then you had to have a neighbor crawl on your window.
That is all true. How did you know? Did I tell you?
Told me.
Okay.
I remember I set in for Mike this week while he was sick.
Here's a story if you're interested, and it's. I know nobody is, but
I am.
Come on.
Well, I drive home all the way from Marshfield, which isn't all that far. Reach in my pocket, and my house key is gonzo. What the hell am I going to do now? Because my spare key is in my bedroom in the dresser drawer. Can't get in. So I go around, try to open one window. Of course, it's locked. Go to my kitchen window. That's not a very big house. Take the screen off, and I'll be darned, the window is unlocked. It's not now. Boosted it up, cleared everything out of the way, and said, Reynolds, you're closing in on 80 years old. Can you get through this? And the answer was no.
No.
By my great luck, my next-door neighbors, who are both bicyclists, had both been out there and already gone on their cycling trip for the day. This is 4th of July. And I said to the guy, hey, listen, do you mind? Oh, he's not a kid, but he's much more lithe than I am. Got up on the ladder, went right through, unlocked the door. My cats ran for shelter because they were scared. Anyway, got in the house. And then where I lost it out in Marshfield, it was found and mailed back to me, which I thought was very nice. A fellow named Chris Davis at Marshfield Chevrolet did that, and I thought that was very, very nice on his part.
Any relation?
Thank you, Chris, for keeping an eye on Ned for us.
And to
Ned's neighbors, of course.
Taking care of Ned. It's always a full-time job.
An interesting little 4th of July, and it all. You think back to it and everything that happened. The whole episode lasted about 15 to 20 minutes. That's all.
All right. Last week, one of our big topics was name changes in sports. Came down today. The team from Washington will change their name. I don't think I saw any timetable for a change.
Well, yes, there is.
There is one. Okay.
The change is actually being brought about not so much because of public pressure, but because of financial pressure from one of the key minority owners, a group named FedEx. Mm-hmm. And they run the stadium. They have the naming rights to the stadium, and they put the pressure on Mr. Snyder, who I think very reluctantly agreed to do it. So what they're doing now is all the officials from the team from Washington, the now banned Redskins, are going over possible new names. They are going to keep the same color scheme, but in terms of the nickname, it'll be a new one. And if you're going to ask me, and I know you will, how I feel about it, couldn't possibly care any less. It has no bearing on anything that, hey, they'll play football.
Yeah.
And 3 months from now, 4 months from now, when the season ends and the team from Washington,
whatever they are,
is in last place, nobody will even care at all.
I think it's a good move. There was a lot of financial pressure on them. I saw that several retail outlets just stopped carrying their merchandise completely. So kind of interesting. I thought the other interesting story, and I want to get your take on this and Stormy's take on this. I know you'll probably not care less about this either, but several internet entrepreneurs, shall we say, decided to camp on some of the best nicknames that could be chosen by the team from Washington. And so they may have to pay somebody to get the name that they want. What do you think of that?
What is it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's people out there speculating that this could possibly be the name that they choose, and so they've gone and done the trademark, and they've done the internet stuff with it. So
I'm going to tell you the problem you're going to run into is the same thing that happened out at Stanford when the Stanford University changed their name from the Indians to what is now the Cardinal.
Yep.
And it's not the bird; it's the name of the pine tree or the breed of pine tree. But anyway. They gave the student body the opportunity to vote on the new nickname. And the student body overwhelmingly chose Thunder Chickens.
Like the Mighty Ducks in Anaheim.
Thunder Chickens was turned down by the administration.
Yeah. So what do you think? What would you go with if you could choose any name for Washington besides the name that they have discarded?
I really haven't thought much about it.
I thought Warriors would be a good.
Warriors.
I've seen that one tossed around on the internet a lot.
Doesn't that have a militaristic attitude?
Yeah, but I think I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, you want your nickname to evoke something, you know.
When the Washington Bullets had their changed.
Yeah, but the Golden State Warriors. I mean, that's
Hawaii.
a team that's out there right away. So. There's
Warriors,
the Rainbow Warriors in Hawaii. You're right about that, Stormy.
And a lot of what I've seen is the Warriors name, but keeping the logo as well. Now, just
I think
actually
the logo's going
getting
to be
rid of the name because they see that as the issue. But
Stormy, I think
I'm saying what I heard.
I think they're changing
I'm
the logo.
just giving you the information.
The whole thing. Well, Warriors is still it's kind of like Braves and Chiefs. Are they antagonistic?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so, because again, I think you choose a name that you want it to evoke something, whether fierce or bravery or whatever. And I think that when you choose the name Braves or Chiefs, that's a name that shows a sign of respect. Yeah. You know, the other two names that are bandied about out there as far as changing, the team from Washington and the Cleveland Indians, I encourage kind of derogatory to American Indians, Native Americans, I guess is what I should say. So I think that's the reason why that's something that people want to see changed.
Well, the logo, as you pointed out, the logo was created by a Native American.
Yes, it was. It was 1972. The gentleman's name was Walter Wetzel, and he was a Native American. He was also the president of the American Indians Association, the Congressional Native American Indians Association, and helped created that. And he's passed from us now, but he was recorded in 2002 by the Washington Post as saying that he was proud to see that logo up there, and he thought it was a positive thing for their people. And even the family has come out just today and said that they wanted to see the name change, but they were disappointed to see the logo would change as well, because it was actually inspired by the Buffalo Head Nickel.
Oh yeah,
what the logo was. So it does have some. The logo does have some good history to it. But I will agree. I do think the name change was appropriate. But I'm kind of with some of my friends and others I've seen on the net. I'd love to have seen the logo change, because I'll admit, I also miss the Houston Oilers logo. It's kind of just nostalgic.
Yeah.
I got those little plastic helmets in the bubble gum machine when I was a kid, and they had the logos on them. So
It's always a thrill whenever the Houston Astros put on those old multicolor uniforms.
Yes.
They were hideous.
They were
terrible.
hideous.
But that was Bill Verdon's uniform, what I saw
was.
when I was a kid, and I looked up to Bill, and
So
that's what I love
this is
when
where
they do
we're going to
those.
get sidetracked at. What's the worst uniform you've ever seen? For me, I'm going to tell you it's late 70s, Chicago White Sox and the black shorts.
And the black shorts.
That was horrible.
That
was
was
bad.
Bill Veck who brought that in, and of course it was again very controversial when he did that. And they finally did them in, not because they were shorts, but because the knees were being exposed to individuals who slid a lot, and you had abrasions and things like. Of course, you're going to get abrasions anyway. The worst I ever saw, oh gosh, I really hadn't thought too much about it. There have been some that.
Head scratchers.
Yeah, especially when you get into the multi-colors of some of the uniforms, especially in football, when you see odd colored uniforms and so forth. But I can't really say one that was really
Least favorite. Let's try that. Let's try least favorite uniform. In football, to me, it's the Ravens. I don't really like their uniforms at all. I don't like that. Don't like the shield. I think the way that their uniform set up almost looks like soccer. It's got the little multi-logo kind of thing on it. I'm not a Ravens fan as far as the logo goes.
Yeah, the worst one I've got to say I saw was probably 9 years ago or so, maybe even 10. I was sitting at a local establishment watching an NBA game on, and all of a sudden I see what looks like 5 7-foot luggage tags come running down the court. I want to say it was the Atlanta Hawks, and I mean it was just the most unbelievable. And I texted my buddy Steve Harold, who had worked for it, Drury, and I said, "Are you seeing this game?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm watching it." And I said, "Does it look like luggage tags to you?" He said, "Yeah, that's exactly what it was." So,
I like those Steelers stripe uniforms that they
No.
roll out once a
There's
year.
the worst, right?
You hate that one?
Oh, I'm not a fan.
That's so old
Not a
school.
fan.
Now
That
that's
is so
they're
old school.
throwback. They're throwback
That's throwback
uniforms,
style,
and
yes.
that's throwback all the way back to the 1930s. But they had those prison-like stripes
Yep.
around. Oh gosh!
and it was a different name team at the time, I think, wasn't it?
Well,
too?
there was they were the Steelers, but there was a time during World War II when they were the Steagles.
yes, because the
That
two-team
that's when they
combination.
combined, Philadelphia
Yes, that's
and
what I'm thinking
Pittsburgh.
of.
But
Okay.
that was very brief.
I love it when we get sidetracked and we talk about
fun.
other things. All right, we'll be back with Ned Talk. If you've got a phone call or question for us, 863-7104. We're right here on 104.7 The Cave.
Ned is in the house.
I'm back, big as life and twice as ugly.
It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
Yes, we are doing Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. That means we're all local. Stormy's from here. Actually, you're from Bolivar, aren't you, Stormy?
New kids would come to town and say, "What are you doing in Bolivar?" We said, "Go to Springfield." So,
And Ned, you're
till we got the
from
skating
from
rink.
the Philly area.
Correct.
But I'm born and bred here. But you've been here longer than I. You've been here. You came here the year I was born.
How
So
old are you? 53.
53. Yes.
All right. Yes, I came here the year you were born, so I am
so
from
we
here.
we claim you as ours.
oh yes,
Philly can suck it.
I would never put this. Well, I'm like Daniel Snyder. Put it in uppercase letters. I would never go back there. Now I will go back there to visit. I have a brother who lives back in Philadelphia, but and some very few, but some friends. But no, in terms of lifestyle, this is where I am.
I've heard that it's always sunny in Philadelphia. Is that true?
No, it is not. No,
Well,
it is not.
We're doing sports talk on the Cave, and we like to get off track every once in a while. We just got done talking about worst football uniforms or worst uniforms. What's your
period.
favorite uniform of all time? Let's go there.
Well, I'll give you two of them because it involved the very first ever college football game that I saw. Very first ever. November of 1953, and I would have been somewhere in grade school. I can't remember. But this is, now we talked about the Ivy League and the Ivy League being FCS, which it is. But back then, the Ivy League really didn't exist as such. And those teams, especially Penn, played big-time football. And the first game I saw as a kid was Penn Notre Dame at Franklin Field in Philadelphia, and 2 uniforms, both of them, one for Penn and one for Notre Dame, really stuck out in my mind. Penn had a most unusual color scheme. The uniforms were all white, but the sleeves were red and blue trimmed.
Wow.
And it was unique. No other team in the country had tried anything like that. And that's how Penn identified itself, with the red and blue piping on the all white uniforms. They came out on this snowy afternoon, and here comes Notre Dame out of the tunnel before 71,000 fans to that cheer for old Notre Dame, the band playing it, in Kelly green jerseys.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like that ever before, obviously, or since. It was a magic moment, and one that resonated with me forever. So they would be my 2, not necessarily teams, but 2 of my favorite color schemes.
Stormy, your favorite?
My favorite uniform was and it was kind of sort of a throwback to some earlier days of baseball, but the Pittsburgh Pirates in the late 70s. Yeah. They had the painter's caps and that older school deal. I really loved those. Of course, I was a huge fan of Willie Stargell. Pop Stargell was just an amazing player, an amazing person. So that's probably my favorite uniform of all time, next to the red, white, and blue of the Harlem Globetrotters. I will always just love those. Americana 101.
I love those hats. I actually had one. My parents ordered it for me,
Gosh,
and they ordered me stars so that I could sew on it when I did something great. My favorite is I'm going to be a homer here. Is the maroon of Missouri State University.
Oh yeah,
I love look at their uniform. Let's stop talking about uniforms. Start talking a little bit about Queen City Insane Asylum. They played their opening game this week. How'd that go?
Well, we kind of had to scratch our heads, and in the end, it's 76-12. So
was it in doubt ever?
No.
Okay.
There was one. I'll admit there was one really terrific run back from a kickoff after the first touchdown the Asylum scored, and ran it clear down the end of the field, and it was a really beautiful style run that they made, and got some good talent on the team. But it was another win. So over the year, 5-0. Over this first season, 1-0. And then our next game is the interesting one, because this is against the team that decided to call in on Mike the Intern show the next morning after we had Caleb Scott on here and say, okay, you guys want to play somebody, we'll play you, and that is the Mid-States Defenders out of West Plains. And they're coming to town on Saturday night, 7 o'clock, Cy Sports out in Nixa. So we will have to see what happens there, but very confident in the team and local sports. We've still got other local sports here in town. It's just not here in town with the Springfield Lasers. Their season has kicked off yesterday, and Ned talked about it earlier today, but 2-time defending world champions.
But they kicked off or served, I think is probably the more appropriate term in tennis. They served with a loss to the Orlando Storm, 21-18. Tomorrow night they played Billie Jean King's team, which is the Philadelphia Freedom, and a team they defeated.
That's a great name.
First,
it is
Freedom.
Yeah, it's a great. Just the whole name. It's a great name.
You know what her nickname was in tennis with the foundation at Mother Freedom.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, that's who the Lasers will play. All the games are at the Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. One of the you guys ever been?
I've heard about it.
It is
just incredible.
It is a palace, believe me. And these tennis players are not at all uncomfortable in the 3 weeks that they will be there.
Who's the major star with the Lasers this year?
Oh, I don't really think they have one. They had the kid a couple of years ago from Yugoslavia, who was a very good player. But in terms, it's just a well-balanced team. And you have to do that in World Team Tennis because you have all segments of the sport. You have the men's singles, women's singles, men's doubles, women's doubles, mixed doubles. And then you have, and it's only one set for each of those particular categories. And that takes probably about an hour and 3/4, 2 hours. And with the scoring system they have, there are overtimes and things of that nature. It's very well done. It's entertaining to watch.
Is there any place where people can watch those games?
They're on television.
Okay, cool.
They are on TV. I think CBS Sports Network may have some of them. I must admit.
One of the ESPN is carrying most of the games, and also a tennis app.
Tennis channel.
Then there's an app on the phone. I think you can get a tennis app that you can watch them as well.
You can always count on us and Ned
or your
Talk.
iPad. Or
You can always count on us and Ned Talk for some vague information.
In this case, it would be very vague because I'm not familiar. Yeah, I'm not in TV anymore, guys. I don't know anything about all the inner workings that go on.
My mom says she sees you on TV all the time. She calls me up. Ned was on TV today.
Is she one who wanted to say, Ned looks like hell with that beard on?
Actually,
Did she?
Stormy, let's go back to the insane asylum.
Yes.
You were talking about Sci Sports. Tell people how to get there that don't know how to get there.
Basically, the big valley right between Springfield and Nixa that everybody have to go through.
Go south on Campbell.
South on Campbell. The big valley there where the several of the gardens are, the
Carson's
Garden and all that, and Carson's Nursery and everything. And then you take a right as if you're going to Summers at the River, which a lot of people know from softball and all this kind of thing.
AA, I believe, that you take there.
Mm-hmm. And then past Summers at the River, and there will be a banner up right there on the corner of the road.
There's a famous establishment right there in the corner of that road.
It's all the further you need to go.
That's exactly right.
Caters to men. Let's
and you
just
turn
leave it at that.
right there, and it's back in a ways, but it's basically where the one of the garden companies used to be. But there's a nice baseball field out there where a lot of little leagues play, and then they've got a football field set up.
Going to add this little addendum, too. Stormy brought up the final score, 76-12. That's not unusual. The 76 is perfectly common in 8-man football. The 12 is uncommon. Usually you have very high scores. This is 8-person football.
8-man football, 70-yard field, 50-yard playing surface with a 28-yard wide surface, and, it's smash mouth football as best as you can get it, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Have you had trouble getting officials?
No trouble getting officials. We've had some different changes here and there for timing, but other than that, the officials have been terrific to work with.
There are no difference in the rules of football, just
not a lot. Mainly the changes are there that are either with the numbers of the players or the size of the field, such as in a kickoff situation, if you actually hit the kickoff and it goes through the uprights on the other end of the field, it's a score.
Oh, is that right?
It is. I know, crazy, but
how many points?
I believe it's 1, but it's still a score. And you don't see it that much. The guys didn't even try it the other day, and we've got a very excellent kicker. And so,
who is your kicker?
His name is
Frank Clark.
I wish we were on TV right now.
He does this every week.
The look on Stormy. You're the GM.
It's
You're
what you
supposed
got
to know
last
this
week.
stuff.
And I've got 38 of these guys I've got to keep track of.
All right.
And so I'm still learning and trying to get past the nicknames is the best thing.
I'll tell you this. When I coached baseball, I would get all the kids around me after the first practice, and I'd go through and try to name all of them. That was something I did. And sometimes I'd have big groups of kids.
My biggest issue is the fact of, and with little kids, it's a little easier because they haven't developed nicknames yet.
Yeah.
Here, I've got nicknames all over the place, and some of them have nothing whatsoever to do with their given name. And so I'm trying to, although the one name I will, and I'll give him a plug here on live radio, L. Tyser II is one of our better players. He's run the ball in several times for touchdowns in the preseason, and did a heck of a job helping move the ball around on Saturday. So
one more time.
7 o'clock, Sci Sports out in Nixa.
What day?
Saturday, 7 p.m. kickoff time, and we've had food trucks there. We've got music playing. The
tickets
after tickets are $5 a piece to get in, and then the little ones, of course, the tiny ones are free. But everybody, come on out; it's a good time.
Ned, anything you want to plug before we leave?
I want to make sure that everybody knows about Mitch Holdus, who's coming here on Friday. We'll be meeting out the Riff. And they say, what in the world is the Riff? Well, it's a little adjunct auditorium to
nice place.
It really is.
Very nice.
And very, very amenable to the type of circumstance that we'll have here. Mm-hmm. It's right next to, is it Hard Rock Coffee? Is that
a Classic Rock Coffee?
Classic Rock Coffee. It's part of that same building. And you go in there, probably seating capacity for maybe jammed 200. We will not allow that many in there.
Yeah.
We're going to probably cut it in half. It's probable that individuals going in will have to have masks. I'm assuming that's going to be the case. We are expecting some VIPs to be there without mentioning any names. But Mitch Holdus, the longtime voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, will be interviewed by Art Haynes and by me. And it's a really good evening. Lasts probably 25, 30 minutes. And then now last year he brought a videotape with him, and that we were able to show on the computer, and it was very good. It really illustrated exactly what he had been talking about, and he is very entertaining. He does a good job.
I heard you and Mike talk about it this week. Not going to force anybody to wear masks, but I'm sure Mitch would appreciate it if people did wear masks to the event. We don't want Mitch Holthus to come to Springfield and get COVID. That would be like the worst news story. Mitch Holthus with COVID gotten at Springfield, Missouri.
Well, it was just this last year that he brought the video of the mic'd up version of Patrick Mahomes, I think it was.
That's exactly right.
And it was just, you got to hear this young man who's so young in this league, such passion and such a strong confidence. That was just amazing. And so a lot of attitudes with Patrick were changed by people out of that thing. I saw a lot of it online afterwards.
Well, I'm excited for it. It's happening Friday night out at the Riff, corner of Sunset and Kansas Expressway. Buy your tickets now online at 1047thecave.com. Ned, see you Friday night.
Friday night it is.
Stormy, see you Friday night. See you guys Friday night. We'll see you back here next Monday night. Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.